Here I have a list or a selection of what I call a limited palette of colors. These particular colors, I just love this choice because they're so versatile and they really accomplish a lot in what I need in my artwork. Now, artists, we all have different selections of reds, yellows, blues, etc. that we feel is our favorite. And I'm going to explain to you in a minute by demonstrating why I chose these particular colors to work with and to recommend as a limited palette to get started. That's all you really need. Now, these colors will not create the neons, the fluorescence. Sometimes there's some turquoise and just some random colors that are out there that may not be able to be created with these, but you can go pretty far with these. Now, I'm going to go ahead and give you the names. Now, there's different brands here. These are all professional grade paints. They're highly pigmented versus the student grade paints, which are just not as, they're good, but they don't have as much pigment, so sometimes you have to layer them. So this is cadmium, I abbreviate, I call it cadmium yellow light, titanium white, I should put this over here as the lightest value, cadmium red light, the alizarin crimson hue permanent. Sometimes you'll see on the label alizarin crimson hue, sometimes alizarin crimson permanent, it's all the same. Quinacridone magenta and ultramarine blue. Now some companies have split up ultramarine blue to ultramarine blue red shade, and I think either green shade or yellow, probably green shade. The ultramarine blue red shade is more along the lines of the traditional ultramarine blue because as we learn about colors, they tend to lean a certain way because it's not light, it's color, it's pigment, and like it's reddish. And so sometimes people say, oh, it's like almost purplish sometimes. It depends on how you use it. And then I've included, I just abbreviate the pronunciation to say phthalo, but here's that long word, green. Now this right here, I have blue shade. I also have yellow shade. Or is it green shade? I always forget. But anyway, what happens is this is really intense and very strong. And sometimes it's very helpful to have this to include, to make some greens just right off the bat, to just have that. It makes for an interesting combination with the blues and all these, etc. Now, just noticing real quick, I want to tell you a few things about the tubes. Not that it's important to know. It'll come as you paint, get used to painting. The S right here, and you can see it on different, that's a series 2, but small print. That's series 3, series 1. It's got to do with the type of pigment that's in the paint, and sometimes they price them based on the series in the paints. Now, another thing, some of the labels, for example, the titanium white here has a black square. That means it's opaque. Now, some of them, if it'll be like right here, this is an open box, that means it's transparent. And sometimes you'll see there'll be a line down a diagonal line. That means it's semi-opaque or semi-transparent, however you want to word that. Now, the reason I love the cadmium colors are they are opaque. Now, sometimes when you're mixing, let's say I want to mix a green and I want it to cover an area, I want it to work for me. This will help make your greens more coverage because a lot of the blue, like the blue is transparent, the green's transparent, a lot of the colors are transparent. And so they don't cover as easily. You'll see as you work with your paints, that's gonna come in handy sometimes. And the red, sometimes it's just nice to have that red that'll work for you, that'll cover up things that are underneath. Okay, let's get started on putting the paint out, and I'm gonna mix some colors and show you what a variety we can make with just this limited palette of colors. Okay, I have placed the colors on a foam dinner plate to use. I'm going to mix them on here, and then I'm going to use this watercolor paper to do little samples to show you some of the mixtures. Now, I often use these foam plates to mix my colors on, but I have another palette that I actually store my paints in. But for today's purposes, I'm just putting them out on here. And I'm using a palette knife today to mix the paints. I typically use a brush when I'm working on my artwork, and instead of using the knife and then the brush, I just use the brush. But today I'm going to use the knife to mix. Now, the colors again are titanium white, cadmium yellow light, cadmium red light, alizarin crimson, quinacridone magenta, ultramarine blue, phthalo green blue shade. All right, let's get started. Now, before I get started, I should say, I recommend that you take time to play with your colors as well, because sometimes we don't do that, and we just get limited in what we think we can make with our mixtures. Now, I'm also going to be mixing colors on here. So here we go. I'm going to take a little bit of the yellow, And keep wiping the blade, and a little bit of this. Now, it doesn't take much to change the mixture. So a little bit of the red and the yellow, and that's pretty standard. Now, of course, you can play and have more red, more yellow, etc. to change it. But let me go ahead and add a little bit of white. Put the white over here. Now, sometimes we can't lighten a whole area, so we go ahead and put the lighter color here and slowly bring that color in. So there's a variety of colors right there. And we can see on the paper, there's that. Just the red by itself is right there. And just the yellow is right there. Whoops, it's not showing up very well. There's the yellow. Okay, now the cadmium red light is a warm orangey red. So putting the two together make a lovely orange color. That's really nice. Okay, there's that. Now, I've got a couple other choices of the reds. I have alizarin crimson. Okay, wipe the knife. And more yellow. Okay, so now, like I said, bringing some of the lighter color over here and a little bit of the darker color, because it's hard to lighten a dark color. So you slowly add it to that. Now this is going to be a totally different orange combination. So there. It's a little different there. It's still pretty. I think I had some water on my knife, oddly enough. Now let me put some more red on there. So the yellow changed the color a little bit. Also, that yellow being opaque, the alizarin crimson is transparent. If I wanted to make it more opaque, the yellow makes it more opaque. Let's add some white to that combination here. So it's not as vibrant as the original orange with the cad yellow light and the cad red light. Now let's talk about the quinacridone magenta. Put that on here. And let's see, get some yellow again. That's a little different red. Excuse me, orange. Now, when you have more of the yellow, it's gonna be warmer. But if I put more of the magenta in there, it's a little bit more of a darker red. Now, they're similar. So you notice the alizarin crimson and the magenta are similar when I mix it with the yellow. But let me show you something. These two colors look a lot alike on the plate. But let me show you a little trick in case you have other colors in your paints. And you go, what color is that? And is it really that different? So let me go ahead and show you what you can do. It's going to seem obvious, but I'm going to take some white paint over here. And if I bring this over here, there's that. And then if I bring the white over here, there's a difference. It's subtle, but you can see they're similar, but there's a difference. Okay, now let's talk about this ultramarine blue with the yellow. Again, we're still adding yellow to everything. Again, it always depends on how much of each color. So how much blue, how much yellow, etc. Right now, I'm just mixing two colors. I'm not adding a third color to my mixtures. So here's a nice green. It's a dark green because the majority of the color is the blue. Okay. Now, if I have more yellow, okay, just a little bit of that, that's a totally different green. Let me come over here. So you have that. And of course, if you add some white to it, you can have that summer green that you see in the springtime. There's that pretty color. So there's that. Now, again, I'm just mixing the two colors. When we start to add a second or third color, rather, it's going to change things up a little bit. Now, here is the phthalo green. Woohoo! This is a wild color. It'll take over your painting if you're not careful. See how strange that looks there. Okay, I'm going a little bit of yellow over there. Now, the opaque, the cad yellow light is opaque. The green, phthalo green, is not. So there's more of the yellow there. So underneath that, so it's more of a vibrant, screaming green, I call it. So there's that. Now, of course, if you add more yellow, it changes it and makes it more yellow, more opaque, because that's the other one, the ultramarine blue. I'll go back and show you. I think I already did that. The more yellow there. But with the neon, I call it neon. If we add the yellow to that, more yellow rather, you can make it more opaque. Most of the blues are transparent, so the yellow makes it more opaque. Pretty wild. But up here, the ultramarine blue combination is more natural looking. So does that make sense? There's ways to use this in a painting that make it look more natural, like it lives on this earth, not so neon. But then again, it might be the choice that you want. You might want that fresh color, so that's an option there. Now let's talk about adding, let's see, how about if I take the quinacridone magenta and the ultramarine blue. And there we have a gorgeous purple. It's really dark, okay? Now, if I add white to that, oops, a little green in the white paint there. So you can see. There's that, pretty. Now, if you add more of the magenta, it'll change, change the color. Now let's try alizarin crimson rather, excuse me. Okay, alizarin crimson plus the blue. Now I'm just using more of the red, the alizarin crimson. But it's very similar. It's a little different, but it's similar to the quinacridone magenta and ultramarine blue combo. Now, if I add white to it, let's see here, I should clean my brush, my knife rather. Okay, let me grab some white and add it to that. Let's see. Maybe I shouldn't add so much white. It doesn't take too much. Maybe too much. Okay, so now this is the alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, and white. This is the quinacridone magenta. There's a difference. Now, in your painting, you might say it doesn't matter, I'm good with either one, but there is a difference, and you can see there. That's why I suggest if you want to get both colors, but it's not necessary. You can pick one or the other. Now, what if I mix this green and the red? Not red, the blue. Okay, so what am I going to get with that? A really dark color. So this is phthalo green blue shade, and now it's even a more blue. So it's almost a black. Isn't that interesting? Now, excuse me. So what happens if I take the three primaries? And the primaries are red, yellow, and blue. So let's take magenta. I'm going to paint on the side here. And the blue. Let me get more blue. Okay. And the yellow. Okay, now what am I going to get here? I'm going to get mud on purpose. Now, this happens a lot by accident because we mix and mix and we get a mud. It looks like a color that we can't distinguish. We can't tell what it is. And instead of going out and buying a tube that looks like that, we can make it ourselves. So let's see what it looks like on here. Now, It's a very dark color. It leans a little reddish, purplish, etc. because it's got red, yellow, and blue in there. Now let's say I want it to lean a little bit more yellow. I can go ahead and add more yellow to it. And you can barely tell there, but it'll lean a little bit more towards the yellow. I can add more blue, and it would go more blue, more red, go the other way. Now, if I added a different red, it would change that up too. But you can see these are just with the basic colors I have here. I can add white to all of these. In the combinations like the orange, I could add more yellow, more red. I could have a different red. On the greens, I could add a little bit of red to the greens to make it not as green. I could muddy up here, let's just show you. I could take a little bit of alizarin crimson, just a little bit, and add it to the green here. And it's not as green, if that makes any sense. Kind of a muddy green, which might be what you need for the dead grasses that you might be making. Anyway, just realize the potential is there, and you have a lot of different combinations you can make, and it's all about varying how much paint you add to the combination. More red, more blue, more yellow. But these are the primaries. You have the yellow, you have several reds, one blue, a green, and a white. Now, out in the stores, you can go ahead and purchase other variations of all these, but this is the colors that I really love and have worked well for me, and I know they'd work well for you. And as far as the black goes, you can see you can create beautiful darks just with these colors here, because if you use black by itself sometimes in a painting, it sometimes feels like a black hole if you're not careful. Anyway, I encourage you to get these colors, play with them, experiment with them, and you'll be surprised how far you can go with these.